said, North Carolina launched. I know you know that already. Yeah, I know you know that already. If you have the
we got to get a story up about that.
Listen, if you have the internet and do anything in the sports landscape whatsoever, you are very well aware of this. But it has launched. It is going. And what does our own Eric Ramsey have to say about it?
Yeah, interesting piece up from Eric that we just posted today at Legal Sports Report, talking about how he believes that a lot of the forecasts out there for how much revenue North Carolina online betting will generate are too conservative. And I want you to understand that in many years of working with Eric, and including the last few in which he's been doing revenue analysis for us, his forecasts are almost universally, I don't want to say bearish, but conservative for sure. He's not one who puts himself out over the top of his skis.
He's not a sunshine pumper, as you say. Yes, as we say. Like he's not a sunshine pumper. He's not just always like, everything's going to be great. Sunshine.
No. I would never accuse our Eric Ramsey of being Mr. Sunshine. That is just not his ethos. But I would say that this time he's out there saying he believes that this is going to be even bigger than the initial revenue forecast. And he points to what the state initially forecasted for year one, which is in the range of $4 billion of handle. He thinks based on the early returns that we're seeing, it's going to be closer to $6 billion. And in this article, he makes a case for all of the factors that North Carolina has going for it. Its passionate fan base for college sports, especially for basketball, its destination status for golf in particular, and the type of clientele that draws to the state over the course of time, NASCAR's home proximity to help boost a niche sport that doesn't do as much business in other places but might be able to do better in North Carolina. And with all of that factored in, he says that even $7 billion might be in the realm for the first 12 months. And when we say for the first 12 months, we mean from launch date on March 11th to March 10th of 2025. So I encourage everybody to go to Legal Sports Report and check out Eric's article. He lays out a nuanced case for why he thinks North Carolina could be a top 10 market in the U.S. pretty quickly.
They're getting excited about Deontay Johnson in town, too.
Yeah. I mean, listen, anytime you have a professional football team that commits $100 million to two guards, you got to get excited.
Listen,
they're protecting one of the what's the word I should use? Shortest quarterbacks in the NFL.
So we're just listen, we're you got Deontay Johnson coming to town, so there's at least that.
Rejoice.
Yes. All right, Adam, take us home where we're just a couple other state updates.
Yeah, just a little update here and there from the states. I'll start in Minnesota, where it's slow and steady progress in Minnesota, and our Pat Evans has been following this for years now. The report he had out of yesterday's hearing was that there were hints of bipartisan agreement on where this bill could be heading. So that is the good news, because there has been this general disagreement in which the Democrat Farmer Labor Party, which is generally in line with the interests of the gaming tribes, which have exclusivity in the state, has wanted the tribes to have those licenses exclusively. The Republican side has been wanting the horse racing tracks to also get sports betting licenses. They tried last year to do a setup in which the tracks would get a cut from the revenue, and the tracks said, no, we want licenses. Well, the amendments that were made in this Senate committee this time look like a step toward potential compromise, because last year, that revenue cut was capped at $3 million. This year, they've put it back in with no cap. So if the market does very well, it could go well above $3 million in terms of the cut for the tracks. And when you look at what they did to the tax rate, doubling it from 10% to 20%, then you say, okay, well, that we could be generating a lot more tax revenue, and therefore the cut to everyone involved here would be a lot greater. That being said, we have to talk about the negative part, which was them putting in a ban on in-game betting that continues to confound most of the people in the industry. It was put in under the auspices of responsible gambling, and I would challenge anyone out there to find someone who believes that in-game betting by itself is a driver of problem gambling in situations in which problem gambling was not already prevalent. So it would be the first ban of that sort in the country if it were to pass. That continues to be one of those things that will have to be negotiated down the line, but they do have another month to get that bill out of committee. So nothing immediate going on in Minnesota that will require our attention. In Georgia, it looks like it's dead, but this happens every time in Georgia. All of a sudden, we get a little Undertaker.gif, and the hand shoots up out of the casket, and they're like, wait, not yet. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So there is a hearing coming on Monday in Georgia in which the prospects for legalized sports betting will raise from 0% back to name your own single digit for it happening this year in Georgia. For the third consecutive year, it appears that outside political interests, as in bigger issues that legislators have to deal with in a day-to-day fashion, are going to get in the way of legalized sports betting passing. So we will keep an eye on what's happening there. We'll also keep an eye on what's happening in Colorado when it comes to Prize Picks, Underdog, and other fantasy sports companies, because this was one of the more interesting states when it came to the pick'em games, because the Colorado regulator decided to work with Underdog, and that applied then to others, in which it said, okay, you can't do 2 or more based on regular stats. You can do 4 or more based on fantasy points. Well, that was under the previous head of the department, Dan Hartman. Dan Hartman has since retired. It is a new regulator, and now it looks like that the ban is going to extend, or at least it has been initially extended, to cover player versus house. And this is a separate discussion when it comes to the fantasy sports issue, where are we talking about it being peer-to-peer? Are we talking about it being player versus house? That is a separate discussion from the, is this a prop bet based on the 2 or more, et cetera, et cetera. That will go to a legislative committee sometime soon for discussion in Colorado, where player versus house might ultimately be banned, and that would raise another whole set of issues for the pick'em operators when it comes to what their future looks like in a state where it appeared that there might be some willingness to compromise on them being able to offer those controversial games.
One other thing that did happen also today here, Adam, just for our friends in Chicago, you can head to the friendly confines and make a bet retail over at Wrigley Field as well. We've, of course, been talking about Illinois sports betting for quite some time, and how there was how they've changed, multiple different times along the way. The only reason I do bring that up is because it does, it's the first retail location, major retail location in Chicago, which I think is at least somewhat interesting, because there are, you've been there, I've been there, like there's a lot of people around Wrigley Field, and so you might want to go and hang out and place a bet and things like that. And then also, isn't there a deal where you can only bet on in-state schools over the counter or something like that? So like with March Madness coming up, that could also make Wrigley Field a pretty hot spot.
Yeah, there is a number of considerations that we have to take in there, and I will correct one little thing in there that you said. You've been there. I have not, but my first trip ever is coming next month. I am going to make my initial Wrigley Field trip and check that one off the stadium list for me. So who knows? Maybe a few old styles in, I'll be standing there at the DraftKings Sportsbook seeing if I can get $100,000 down on a college baseball side.
Yeah, it's quite
I heard that's what you do at a stadium sportsbook.
Yeah, it's just we just in time though for March Madness. I'm sure not. Again, as we talk about some of these dates and these launch dates, Adam, we know are not by happenstance. They certainly get going there. There was a lot of people when Loyola made the big run in the Final Four and no one could bet on them in Illinois. There was a lot of stink that was going on around there. So at least now you can make the trek to Wrigley Field if you want to go that route.
Yay! And I'll be sure to pass it on to everybody in New Jersey still mad about St. Peter's too, where you can't bet on the in-state there either. So continuing to bring up the question of in-state bans. Good God, y'all, who are they good for?
Hey, Adam, here's the thing. They want to look at you in the face across the counter and be like, is you doing anything bad with this bet? No? All right, take your money.
Is your name Bert Neff? Do you know the Alabama baseball coach? Are you about to say to me, if only you guys knew what I knew? I love that story so much.
It is such a great story. Guys, again, everything we talk about, you can find over on LegalSportsReport.com. So go in, take in all of the great stuff that Adam and team are doing over there. Again, everything we do, absolutely free. So do appreciate your support by hitting that subscribe button. Again, on the audio side, if you want to rate and review, appreciate that as well. For Adam, I'm Matt. Talk to you guys next week.